price to move towards uniform price is what Telecom Commission has said, and the industry was expecting it to be on the lower side, but it has put that particular rate or the spectrum user charge at 3%, which is going to be a dampener. In fact, we'll be speaking to some of the industry experts as well on how much of a dent will it have on the really the numbers of the companies, because remember, upcoming on in the telecom sector is also the spectrum auctions, which are expensive in nature. Most of the telecom companies are debt laden. We are already seeing a lot of consolidation in the sector, and in addition to that, we have this extra additional charges also coming in. So Mahesh Uppal, who is an expert in the telecom sector, is joining us on the phone line. Mahesh, good to have you on the show. Now, your first reactions, 3% SUC. Of course, the telecom industry was expecting it to be much lower. How much of a dent do you see coming in for the telecom sector, and will it really dissuade them from taking more expansionary steps, like also participating in the upcoming spectrum auctions?
No, I do not believe that this is going to be a make-or-break decision for them. Having said that, it will be extremely disappointing to them that the Telecom Commission has chosen to stay with its original stand, which is both in terms of cost, a much higher cost to the telecom companies, but also in terms of its actual enforcement is a bit of a nuisance. So I don't, as you are aware, the telecom companies have not been particularly enthused by the approach of the Telecom Commission on the SUC formula. So that is certainly something that will disappoint them. But the numbers involved in the actual telecom spectrum auctions are just much too high for this number to make or break those decisions. However, this number is high because the revenues of which this is a percentage are very high. So yes, the absolute amount is a concern, but it will not make a difference to whether companies are going to bid or not.
No, my hint at that point, Mahesh, was more towards more steps being taken to expand in the sector, and spectrum auctions happen to be the next expansionary step. But I take your point. It's a much smaller thing in the overall scheme of things. But which are the companies which will stand to really lose the most because of this number?
Well, the two companies that stand to lose a bit more are Airtel and Jio, as has been pointed out. But I don't, as I mentioned, the numbers are not very high. They are just a deterrent for companies who are looking for a far more pro-investment, pro-growth approach to telecom levies. Now, clearly, this sector needs to expand much more, especially when it comes to serving the more distant or remote areas or the unconnected villages. Plus, as you know, the bigger issue is that our data markets aren't growing as fast as they might, and revenues for data are even more disappointing. So this is something that the government could have helped by having a more liberal approach to the SUC, but it has chosen in its wisdom not to, and that would be a disappointment.
Yes, so Mahesh also wanted to understand that what could be the future implications when it comes to the overall sector, because we are already seeing a lot of consolidation. Of course, this may be one of the minor bits and factors, but overall, how are you seeing, because many of them are really fighting for survival currently?
Absolutely, and I think we should expect more consolidation. And I do believe that some of the smaller players will need to in one way or the other, exit the sector. In some cases, one might even think that the smaller players might be the acquirers rather than the acquirees. In other words, they might buy rather than sell. But whatever happens, there is no doubt in most people's minds that the number of players in the market is just too high, and which particularly impacts the availability of spectrum, as you're aware. Spectrum being a finite resource, it matters how many players amongst which it is shared. At the moment, India is one of the world's most crowded markets. You don't have that many players in any market in the world. So both from a spectrum perspective as well as from a profitability perspective, we expect more consolidation in the sector.
All right, I take that point, and that is one thing to be watched out for when it comes to the telecom sector. Thanks so much, Mahesh Uppal, for joining us with your expert take on this big development. Of course, the Telecom Commission sticks to 3% and did not really listen to the industry stalwarts that it should be brought down further.